This is Around the Town, and I'm your co-host, Tom Byrne.
And this is Barbara Byrne, and our guests are Glenn Giles, Jim Deering, and Bob Morrow from the Rutland City Band. Jim, you're the historian. You can start and tell us some of the history of the band.
Well, over the past, probably 2 years, I've made an effort to try to collect much of the information that was kept by one of the oldest members, as when I first joined the band, was Raymond Hughes. Ray was practically a walking historian of the Rutland City Band, and many of the stuff was passed on to me through his stories, but a lot of the material he kept at his home, and after his passing, it kind of was turned over to me to take care of. And one of the things, as you note tonight, I'm wearing what used to be the Rutland City Band's uniform.
When was this worn by the band?
Well, these uniforms came out in 1934. I had a picture that we were looking at here just before we went on the air, that the band had their picture taken on the steps of the Rutland Post Office in 1934, and these were the brand new uniforms, except they had the same brown belts that used to go across and around. Somewheres along that time that disappeared, and I'm not sure just when that was. It was before I joined the city band. But this was a uniform, and I still got mine. I haven't turned it over yet. I've kept this uniform. Kind of, I don't know, it's about nostalgia there that you don't forget those things. But most of the material I've tried to put together, you can see probably some of it scattered all over the floor here. I have been trying to get some kind of a chronological order to it. A lot of the material, many of the old members of Rutland City Band have long passed away, and you don't know who the people are in pictures, when the dates are. There are a few left, like Ed Pike and Dick Dagg and Bill Tarble. They're still alive and around, and you have to depend on them, and many of them, they've forgotten the names now as years passed. But looking through, it was one here that we were looking at, and I kind of got a big kick out of it. And Mr. Hughes had kept this as when Frank Wilson was one of the staunch supporters of Rutland City Band back in those years. And he's got a bit that they took out of the paper, which was back when Rutland was just a town, a village. It's dated 1867.
That's a long time back.
It certainly is. And that was the Rutland Village Corporation. They're going to meet Tuesday night, it said, to see if the voters will set aside money to buy instruments for the band. And then he had parentheses on the side and said they did. I kind of got a kick out of that. And then I guess there must have been some kind of a lag in between, years lag there, because they had a letter to the editor comes out and complaining. Back then it was called the Rutland Cornet Band. And it says other towns were so much smaller than Rutland, and Rutland being the largest town in the state, and they have to go outside to get a band, and they were very upset by it. And he said the village should provide funds for Rutland City Band. So apparently they finally did get those funds somewhere along the line. We've had a lot of talk over many years, and there's been challenges in the newspapers. You know, we come out and they say the oldest municipal band in the United States. Well, I've often tried to go through and really pinpoint some of that down. I think the key thing is there probably are bands that are older per se than Rutland City Band, but not municipally supported. That seems to be the key word, that we are a municipally supported band, and certainly we appreciate that from the city of Rutland. They've been staunch supporters of us, and we really appreciate it.
Is that in continuous, 107 years of continuous operation? Are there any breaks?
Right, you figure they're back, they were writing this back in the funds of, what, 1867. So there you got almost 119 years right there that they were back looking for funds to be municipally supported. And back in those days, that wasn't legal for the cities to do that. I found that data at one time, and I was looking for it before we came on tonight to see if I could really pin it down, but the date we have for Rutland City Band is 1879, and Rutland was a city. And there was a gentleman, and I just wanted to make sure because I didn't want to make a guess. It was in 1894 that Carl Hinsman, he was apparently an executive with the Old House Cable Company.
Mm-hmm.
He made a bill to put into the Vermont legislature making it lawful for villages and cities to support such things as community bands. So it really wasn't legal to do until it actually came out in '94 for cities to support
In the
groups like
state of
that.
Vermont.
In the state of Vermont. And then the challenge went out, and somewheres along the line, it was in a paper and someone saw it somewheres, and they challenged Rutland City Band and said, no, you're not the oldest municipally support band in the country. So back in those days, the Billboard magazine was one of the big trade journals in the entertainment field, and Billboard picked it up. And they did the research. Now I've looked for that, I can't find it, but Billboard picked it up anyway, and they did a poll and they started checking all over for it. And the Baltimore City Band that was in Maryland, they were the ones that were challenging us at the time, and they lost out. Billboard says, no, you're not. Rutland still is. So we were kind of proud of that fact, and have been for over all these years. But a lot of the material was lost. I believe when they headed over, George Goddard, who used to be an old attorney here in Rutland, and he was very, very active in Rutland City Band at the time, and he had much of this historical data all stored in his office, and they had a fire.
Oh.
And much of that was destroyed during that fire. So you had a lot of the records that you could really go back and get some of this, it's gone now. And it's kind of too bad. So we were very much dependent on some of the old-timers, and Raymond Hughes, God rest his soul, was one of them, and the stories he would tell were just delightful. To sit down and listen to him talk and tell us about what used to be back in the good old days when they used to play the fair and all the things that went on at that time.
Well, I wonder if the Rutland Herald, their archives go back as far as that.
I would think so, and part of what I want to do, as you can see how I've got a lot of the stuff thrown together and pulled out and trying to get them in order, is to find at the Herald, you know, who would know where I could dig in the archives, because there's got to be, a lot of these prints are coming out of papers that there are no dates on it. And some of those very delightful things that Carlton Wilson used to write about City Band, he was a staunch supporter of the band, and there's no dates on them. And I would like to have a date so I could put it in some kind of order, you know, for the historical facts. And it was really delightful. I've had a lot of fun going through it and looking at the old pictures and the developments and the things that the band has done years and years back to, you know, late 1800s and early 1900s. And a lot of that is still documented that I have now.
Well, Jim, you told us about the old days. What can we learn about present day band?
Present day band is, I think, the last few years we've really had a good band. I really have been really excited about City Band, and with Bob and Glenn in there this year and last year, and it's been carrying along this way. It's been super. Everyone, you know, loved Jerry Minard, and Jerry did a fine job for us. And when Jerry passed away, I thought, my God, what are we going to do now? So we started looking, and I spoke to Glenn, and I spoke to Bob, and we got together, and between those two guys, they've really done a fine job for us in it. Because, you know, years ago, they wouldn't allow young people to play in a city band. They didn't want the young folks. It was a band for men, period. And, of course, as time went on, they passed away. So you had to have the young people in there to fill in. There was no choice. And I think Napiani he was the first man I played under when I came here in 1952. I started in 53 with City Band. And I was playing under Napiani then. And he was one that was all for the young people coming in. He was bringing them in from all the various schools. And we built up, over the years, a fine band. This year, you know, the repertoire is a lot different. You don't hear a lot of the older tunes. People like the upbeat type of music today. And you got two gentlemen right here that, you know, they're familiar with that type of music. And we're playing it. And it seems to go over very well with the public. So I'm delighted with it anyway.
Glenn, when did you and Bob take over the band?
Bob and I came in last summer with the band, and we took a little different approach. It was my feeling when I talked with Jim that I enjoy my vacation time, and I think people should enjoy their vacation. We take that kind of a attitude with our players. We want them to make a commitment to the band, but still have their summers. So Bob and I decided if we did it together, it would give us a little less pressure on each one of us and the ability to have our free time as well as the band's time. And it gives us a little different input into the band. The band gets to see two different styles of directing, and when I'm not directing, I can play and add my support to the lower brass, and when Bob's not directing, he plays and adds his support to the upper brass section, which doesn't hurt us either.
That's right.
So it's really been the two of us working together has really, I know, been a lot of fun for us. And I think the band people have enjoyed it too.
Glenn, we all enjoy the music when we go to the concert on Sunday night, but what we don't know is about the preparation for Sunday night. Can you tell us something about that?
Well, when I first started with the band, and I think probably even back when both Bob and I did play with the band, we rehearsed on Monday nights. And I know when I took over, one of the things I said to Jim was, Jim, Monday night's got to go. I don't like this Monday night at all. It's one thing we got to do. We have one rehearsal, and then we go and do it on Sunday night. And if you're rehearsing on Monday night, and you're playing on Sunday night, well, by the time Sunday rolls around, the players have forgotten a lot about the dynamics you want. And the director looks at that score and goes, oh my word.
What did I tell them to do?
So we pushed to try and move it, and we got it to Tuesday night last year, and that was better, but it was still only one night better. But this year Jim did a real good job for us. He got us over to Thursday nights, and that's about the latest we can get it, because people aren't going to give up their Fridays and Saturdays. But with Thursday night, we get a chance to put them through the workout for 2 hours on Thursday, and then we go and do an hour and a half on Sunday. And it seems like the carryover's been pretty good. So people remember what we want them to do, and most of the time we remember ourselves.
Bob, what do you do in your everyday life? You don't... Are you in music also?
Yes, I am. I'm a music teacher. I teach I've got instrumental and vocal music at South Royalton School.
Oh, that's quite a ways from here.
I live in Killington, about 30 miles. And I play in a couple jazz bands and a rock group as well.
So it's music is your life.
Well, pretty much. I get into athletics quite a bit.
What kind of athletics are you in?
Before I got myself injured, I was a really serious distance runner.
Oh.
I had an Achilles tendonitis problem. And I follow the Red Sox really closely, which is not necessarily the best thing in the world to do, but...
What the heck? And Glenn, what do you do?
I'm instrumental director at Mill River now, so I'm also in music most of the time. And Bob and I also work together in the Marble City Swing Band. So that's why the duo was kind of together before we came to the
That's why you work so well together. You've known each other for a while.
I can say the Marble City Swing Band sounds just like Glenn Miller used to sound.
Well, that's what we try and do. That's what we're out there for, the people that enjoy that kind of music.
Thank you. Now you can see why my hair is so great, huh?
Jim didn't tell you one of his other sidelines. He teaches ballroom dancing, and he brings a lot of people to our band to dance with it when we're out there in the public.
Just love that.
You're still teaching ballroom dancing?
Yes. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. We enjoy it. It's nice relaxation for the wife and I, and we've been with Lorraine Gilbert, Miss Lorraine, for a number of years now. And of course all my children went through with Lorraine, and so one year she asked us if we'd like to teach ballroom for her, and I thought, oh boy, you've got to be serious. She said, oh yes. So she taught us the ropes and how to go ahead and teach it, and we try to keep abreast of what's new in ballroom, and that's kind of a hobby with my wife and I. And of course that fits in with
the Marble City Band.
Type of music,
yeah.
You know, you're hearing a lot more. It's coming back a lot.
Yes.
Well, Barbara's always telling me, why don't you learn how to dance? Maybe we should take lessons.
Hey,
Delighted.
now we
We're
know
not
someone
too old
that
to
does
take
it.
lessons.
Hey, we've had people that were up in their 80s learning ballroom.
It's good exercise.
Yes, it is.
And while you're dancing, you enjoy yourself.
That's right. Gets about 30 pounds off the middle during the winter for me. Really.
I believe it.
It does. Yeah.
Glenn, you mentioned different approaches to music. What do you mean by that? You and Bob had different approaches to leading the band.
Or the type of music.
Is that just the type of music that you're
Well, I
leading?
I think it's more conducting style. Each conductor is different, and working under one director, I think a group can, they don't stay quite as, I want to say,
on their
top of their toes, yeah. Where when there's two of us, they have to constantly be ready to shift styles and to watch us. So it keeps the rehearsals and the bandstand, it keeps everyone just working that little bit extra, which I think, is good for the group.
I like that.
Nothing gets stale that way.
That's a good feature we have now, the two conductors.
Yeah, I like the feature of an occasional solo, too, mixed in with the numbers. That's very good. Is that something new?
Yeah, well, we've always done like the trombone trios and solos here and there. It is the whole thing. I suppose one aspect we should get into is the whole Rutland City Band. I think is a social type of experience in itself for us and for the audiences out there. And we like impromptu things. I know when Jerry was directing, we'd get into the polkas and I'd start stamping my foot up there on the stand and everybody else would go along. Well, now the kids have taken it one step further. Now they got the bubbles and they blow bubbles.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It's just part of having fun and letting our hair down a little bit and just doing what we enjoy, which is what it's all about. There was a piece when Jerry was directing again, Festive Holiday, I think it is. And I always used to, in rehearsal, when we get started on it, reminded me of the old newsreels that used to have in the theater back before my days even, but we had seen them, and I used to start a pattern during rehearsal sometimes when we'd be playing them. So last year, I asked Bill Sharp, I said, Bill, I want you to work something up. He's a radio announcer, and I want you to take the microphone, and while we're playing this thing, I want you to do a little running commentary on the day's news and the sports thing. And again, it's just off the cuff, and let's have some fun and do what we feel is enjoyable, and hopefully the audience will enjoy it too.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Hopefully.
Oh yes, yes they did. I think that's one of the important things that we have with Glenn and Bob now, because we do have a lot of young people in the band.
Yes.
And you need that rapport with those people. That some people, they're fine and dandy with an adult person, but they lost the rapport probably with the younger folks. They might get out of patience too easily with them or something. And that's what's good about Glenn and Bob, but I don't see that, and that makes my life a lot easier too as band manager, that the kids are happy and they don't get bent in a lot of shape because of something. And it really makes it for, as Glenn says, it's fun. The kids are up there blowing bubbles and stuff like that. Nobody gets upset. It's just delightful, and it's a lot of fun. And I like that. I really do. I've enjoyed that.
How many leaders have you played under?
I've only played under, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I played under Napoleon Yanni.
Since when? I mean, when did you start playing?
I came here, I moved to Rutland in 1952, and I started the City Band in 53. Or 54, and that summer 54. And Napoleon Yanni was director then.
And he's the man you said came from Italy.
No.
No, he's not the one.
No, our lead clarinetist at that time came from Italy.
Oh, I see.
That was Frank Di Pasquale. He came here with a Carbarini band of Italy, and he liked the United States so well, he stayed here, moved to Vermont, and liked Rutland. I hate to guess how old Frank was when he finally hung up his clarinet. He was in his 80s. He was just a delightful gentleman.
One thing I wonder about, Jim, how did people get into the band back when you moved into the community? Obviously, you were new to the community, and
Yeah,
how did they
you
bring you
know,
in?
that was
That's a good question.
yeah, that was tough, you know. As I mentioned before, you know, they kind of look at the younger people coming in, you know. Of course, here I am, a stranger to Vermont besides, and I was in my mid-20s, early 20s, and I ran in, usually it was, if you were in the school department, very often the directors, like Napiani was also directing in schools at that time, and they'd know the kids that were pretty sharp, and they'd bring them into city band. But if you weren't in that situation, you know, it was hard. And then most of it came from somebody knowing somebody else. Like Wendell Tilden was the man I happened to know, and you know, I said, gee, how do you get in there? You know, I haven't played in a long time, but I sure would enjoy playing. Oh gosh, he says, we need a bass player. I said, great. So I started playing bass with him. But you could see most of it was then back in, you know, it's invitation. You know somebody, you could walk up and say, gee, I'd like to play in a band, you know, and, oh, okay, we'll let you know type of thing. And it still was kind of, you know, a tight group at that time. But it's changed over the years, and I think that's good. That gives those youngsters a chance that are in high school. A lot of college students still play with us.
Bob, do you and Glenn recruit the players
Yeah, we try.
from
Yeah,
your
we try to
band?
coerce a few kids.
Well, your band is over in Royalton, so they would.
We had a student from
We
his
had a
band
Did you really?
this year, all
Yes,
summer.
we did.
Yep.
Hey, that's good.
She played in both the South Royalton band, and she played in the
I know
Royalton.
they have one over there. You see it advertised in the paper.
Are there more children interested in music today than there were 50 years ago?
They don't know 50
Boy.
years ago.
Seems to me that there seem to be more of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The bands are larger.
Well, I think it's moved to, thank goodness, as a public school educator, it has been recognized by the public as an important part of the education process. And it's no longer, when Napiani was here, is coming in and maybe giving lessons, and the children brought in $1 or something to cover the lesson. It really wasn't supported by the public school system. And now it's recognized as an integral part of the schools. So I think maybe there are more musicians out there.
But I think when I was young, there was I can remember my mother played the piano, and Sunday night was a time when she played the piano, and we'd stand around the piano and sing songs. And I think maybe there were more people that, adults that played instruments like the piano in those days, not so much the brass instruments.
Instruments weren't offered in the schools those days. But now you can take an instrument in the schools, because I know our granddaughters have.
I think,
They didn't keep it up, but
the city band is one thing that I hold out to students, that and the Marble City and things like that, because we take really talented high school students where these people can go through high school, you know, earn money in high school playing in groups, because it is a very small but paid band, the city band, so it is a nice check at the end of the year to get ready to go back to school. And it is kind of an incentive for these kids to work hard. Those that work hard are going to be rewarded. And we have one fellow in the band, Peter Giancola, who is doing very well, playing professionally while he's holding down his college career.
he's the saxophonist.
Saxophone player, the
Yep.
fellow we featured.
Very good.
Yeah. So there's a lot out there for young people, and I like to use this as something to hold up and say, here, you work hard, and there's going to be a place in this band for you. And that's one thing that I think Bob and I have tried to do, is talk it up to the area music teachers from the different schools. We had people interested from Otter Valley. We had a fellow playing in the band from Fairhaven High School, a fellow from Pulteney High School this year. So we're trying to get it out around there, but I'm interested in what Jim said, because there are adults out there, and we'd really like to hear from you. If they've just moved into the community, or they've hung their horn up and they think they would like to do this, we'd like to hear from you. And
Certainly
we'll
would.
make room.
I'm sure people are reluctant to approach.
So I'm sure.
Well, we used to, you know, and we used to play a lot. I played with the city band when we were still marching on the street in parades. And that was one of the things that Jerry was, you know, got invitations, and he felt kind of bad about it, you know, that by then these uniforms were pretty well tattered and worn, and there was only a few of us had them left. And somebody asked him about it at one time, and he says, you know, it just doesn't look, here we are representing the city of Rutland as a band, and everybody's dressed differently.
Mm-hmm.
So
Jim, who were the wonderful, generous people that bought your new uniforms?
those people were the Branshaws of Rutland. That came off strictly from the comments that Jerry Meinert had made that time when he was asked in the papers. He had an interview, and he was indicating to the people that he didn't play and go out much because, we weren't just attired to do it. It just didn't look that way. And this Robert and Lila Branshaw were very generous, and they gave a substantial amount of money to Rutland City Band for uniforms, solely for uniforms. And of course we were just absolutely delighted, and I did save the Rutland Herald on that, which I'll obviously keep in my archives. And this is dated July the 8th, 1982, and they had a picture of Robert and Lila Branshaw in the paper, and a write-up as about giving their donation to the city band. And now we're rather modern. I did bring it. You see the difference that we went through. The classic jackets, as you remember the old bands having. Now we switched to the nice dark pants and the black shirts, or white shirts rather.
He's got it all.
Yes.
And now we get real
You got it all together.
And now we get real classy.
Are
And that's the way
Mrs.
you-
Branshaw still living in Rutland?
See her? And that's how you see us dressed now on the bandstand. And blue blazers and black pants, black bows.
That's another thing that Bob and I are trying to do
And it
with
really
the new look,
looks nice.
and with the ability to go out and really look nice. This year we played at the airport
Yes,
for the
this year,
opening of that.
sure.
We just played for the opening of the CB's new building, and we went to Brandon Training School this year. Things we didn't do this year, but we already have been contacted about next year, is possibly an exchange concert with South Royalton and with Burlington City Band. So next year we're going to...
Might have that one down in Ludlow too. We were talking
Ludlow,
about.
yeah, I never did get a chance to get back there this summer. Ludlow was talking about bringing us down to their bandstand.
And when do you begin your next rehearsal for next summer? Or do you rehearse all year long?
It will be in May, but
It'll be
there
in
is an inkling in the community that we might do a little more this year, so
We're hopeful. We'll see what happens.
Well, Bob, Jim, and Glenn, we thank you very much for coming down to talk to us and tell us about the band and some of the history. And Jim, after you get some of that information and together, I hope you can come down again and give us a further
I would enjoy it.
historical review.
I appreciated the invitation this time.
And if we can do any more for you, let us know.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
This has been Around the Town. Thank you for watching.